Hey, recovery people, could you imagine being able to manage your own feelings simply by learning how to change your thoughts and to be able to do it easy or easier, right? Maybe even naturally. Hey, this video is going to be for you. If you're still struggling with a lot of anxiety and irritability and that restlessness and that discontentment, maybe you're new to recovery. Maybe you're still struggling in your addiction. Maybe you've been in and out of recovery for a while. And maybe you're just an old timer and you like learning stuff about yourself. You're going to want to watch this video because we're going to talk about changing your thinking. But the way we change our thinking, of course, is first we've got to identify what's so distorted about it. And I'm going to mix it all together, and you're going to understand in this very short video why you think the way you think, why you react the way you react. Why is it that addicts, and I'm going to say 98% of addicts have high IQs, a lot of potential, a lot of achievement, you got past successes, motivation, ambition, and yet we always shoot ourselves in the foot. And we even do that during sobriety times. You know, it's not always about drinking and using, because we've been operating out of survival mode. Our thinking is distorted. So what does that really mean? Okay, well, we're going to break into that tonight. And my name is Miles Lewis. I am the co-founder of a program with my wife called Justin's Lighthouse Recovery. We've been helping people and families for around 20 years now. I have been around addiction and recovery for about 50 years. I'm the son of an alcoholic and a stepson of an alcoholic and a brother of an addict, and all three of those fellas are dead now because of this disease. I also am a recovering addict, and I've spent the last 20 years of my life and my behavioral expertise, and I've poured it into developing a program that actually makes a difference. And we want to start sharing that with our YouTube audience. And thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please share this with anybody that you know, because we don't just motivate people. We want to give people real tools. Right? And it doesn't matter how many rehabs you've been to or how many meetings you've gone to. You're going to hear some things from us that maybe you've heard a little bit before, but we're going to go a lot deeper. A lot of the things we talk about, most of our clientele has been to 5 or 6 rehabs before they come to us. And their first group, they say, wow, I've never heard this information before. So we really invite you. We know that that's God-driven. We really invite you to pay attention because you can learn some things and share it with your family members, share it with your friends. Let's get right into this. So the title of this is Changing Your Thinking. Changing Your Thinking will change your life. Okay, well, that seems kind of basic, but it is true. But what does that mean? Right? If you've been around recovery or any kind of therapeutic circles for a while, people talk about, change your thinking, change your behavior, motivated to change, all these kind of terminologies. But what does it really mean? If we're going to change our thinking, well, let me start with this. If we could change our thinking, we would have already done it, right? So it's kind of a misnomer. Our thinking must change if we are going to change. But what has to happen first is we have to understand and be able to identify what's so distorted about our thinking. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you why our perspectives are so out of whack. And the way we ultimately change our thinking is we change our behavior, right? And so if you've been around recovery circles, you've probably heard a lot of the things I'm going to share tonight, but I'm going to add maybe a little bit deeper meaning to it. Doing the next right thing is behavioral. Just sit in that for a minute. Doing the next right thing, regardless of your feelings, is behavioral. The primary way we addicts, just people who live dysfunctionally, maybe they don't have their life together, they've got some struggles, probably got some trauma they've never resolved, develop these same characteristics. we can operate in behavior, but then we always get shot in the foot by feelings. And I'm going to show you a formula tonight it'll bring everything together for you. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. So exploring your thinking so you can make better choices. This will all come together. So tonight we're going to talk about how distorted thinking keeps you self-defeating, how addicts compromise their own values when they don't mean to, identifying your own values, how your thinking dictates your behavior. And I'm going to even go a step further. I'm going to say your thinking dictates your feelings, which dictates your behavior. And learning how to respond to values even in tough situations. I'm going to go back to one of these points right here. How addicts compromise their own values when we don't mean to. Wow. Yeah. Okay, I know everybody understands that, and that's why we tend to have so much shame when we start our recovery journey. How many things, and that's a rhetorical question, how many things have we done that we came out of, we woke up the next day and we went, wow, what in the world was I thinking? We're disgusted by ourselves. We feel shameful. We're horrified by it. And yet, we did it, and then we do it again, and then we do it again, and then we do it again. The lost jobs, the broken relationships, the disappointing our kids, our spouses, our family members. But most importantly, we keep disappointing ourselves, and that's what we're going to focus on tonight. There's a line in the big book that says the only people that can't make it are the ones that are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. I've read the big book a few times. Not one place in the big book does it say we've got to get honest with other people. Why do you think that is? Because if we can't get honest with ourselves, we can't grow. And when we do get honest with ourselves, everything else falls into place. Our honesty and our relationships just become the result of getting honest with ourselves. Well, what does that mean? Well, we're going to get into a little bit of that today in this video. Getting honest with ourselves is about looking at things that we don't want to look at. Touching those disappointing experiences, those disappointing decisions, or kind of default decisions that we are horrified over. Well, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that gal. So to separate ourselves from the shame that is associated with it, we will just deny it. Well, it wasn't that big a deal, and nobody else said anything, and I don't see what all the fuss is, and it's not like that I got fired or anything. And then we will stay in this cycle of denial and self-defeating behavior, and et cetera, following our feelings. The good news is everybody has thoughts and feelings, but in addiction, our thoughts are distorted while our feelings rule the day, right? We're governed by our feelings. Well, here's some of the things that drive that. Childhood trauma impacts. And I'm going to explain that a little bit. We've got to do a lot of other stuff on trauma. So I'm not here to convince you have trauma, but you'll understand when I explain it here in a minute. Childhood trauma impacts change how we perceive our experience. Okay, to be able to really identify that, you've got to understand what a trauma impact is. Trauma in general, and I'm talking about emotional trauma, not physical trauma, a broken leg or a bruised arm or something like that. I got a car wreck and I've got head trauma. That's not what we're talking about. And in fact, those kind of events where you've had maybe a traumatic experience don't necessarily have any lasting effect on humans because we can make sense of what happened. Right, well, I fell asleep, I stepped in front of a bus and it ran me over, and now I've got 18 broken bones. It's painful, we go through it, but it doesn't necessarily attach to us because our brain can make sense of it. The things that cause trauma impacts, emotional trauma impacts, are the experiences that we have that we cannot make sense of. And when you're already behind the 8 ball, so to speak, I mean, this happens in childhood, as we begin to develop this distorted perspective or perception of ourself and how it relates to our any given experience, walking out your car walking out of your house towards your car, and your neighbor waves at you, and you don't say anything, and you get in the car, and your neighbor's like, man, golly, he's in a bad mood today, right? Or he might perceive that as, man, is he mad at me? Or, wow, he must have caught my dog, going to the bathroom on his yard. Now he's not going to talk to me. When in reality, all that happened was you left your house in a hurry. You're focused on work. You're going to listen to your song in the car. You got to get the highway by such and such time, or you're going to be 30 more minutes late. You're not thinking about your neighbor. But now your neighbor, that's all he can think about all day long. Why do people do that? Because there's something deeper. It's impacted. It's a deeper impact. And these traumatic experiences, or I call them trauma impacts, because they can be so simple, like the scenario I just gave you. If you have a sibling who gets a really cool birthday present, and you think, wow, man, they must love him more, even though that's not what's happening. And intellectually, you might even recognize when you're 8 years old that that's not what's happening, because your birthday was 6 months ago and you got what you wanted too. But in that moment, based on how you feel, right? This is the core of it all. Based on how you feel as, say, an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, that's going to dictate your belief. You're starting to understand why we come to the table in early recovery filled with so much shame. I'm not good enough. And survival mode, since these childhood trauma impacts, doesn't have to do with anybody else. It has to do with how we've perceived an experience based on how we feel and our very limited information in that experience. And so we've spent a lifetime in survival mode, which is us trying to prove to the world that we are good enough. And so moving down our little bullet point here, we are conditioned to operate in this survival mode to protect our feelings, to protect ourselves. But that protection mode, that ended a long time ago, right? It worked in the beginning, but then ultimately we developed such a dysfunctional manner of living where we've got to maintain instant gratification. I need everything to go the way I need it to go. I want what I want when I want it. And when we get any resistance whatsoever, we don't know how to respond. I tell our group all the time, is it any wonder that we became addicts and alcoholics? Man, with this stuff rattling around in anybody's brain, you're going to have a lot of anxiety at the very least. Here's the good news. The good news is the solution is inside of you if you're willing to look for it. If you're willing to respond to new information and do the next right thing regardless of how you feel as you apply these new recovery principles, and they're consistent, you're going to have a different life. You're going to have a completely different life. Recovery is not a maybe thing. Yes, there are those of us that are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. The reality is that's very, very small percentage in my 50 years of addiction and recovery. What I do recognize is some of us that shall go nameless, no, I'm just joking, but there is a percentage of us that for whatever reason, they just refuse to get honest with themselves. They just can't, for whatever reason. I'll give you an example. Recently, I worked with a gentleman on an outpatient basis. He absolutely needed long-term residential, but he resisted it because a wonderful, classic addict, brilliant guy, super fun to be around, super smart, super cool, all these things. He just couldn't handle this idea that he might be an alcoholic. And so what he did was he played at recovery. And he didn't have to play very long because he died in his alcoholism. He had a lot of health conditions, and it just exacerbated that and sped that up. But even that guy, with a right system and a long enough runway, would have arrived at this acceptance that I'm sick. Clearly, I don't know how to do it. I'm an alcoholic. But here's why we refuse that, is because, and this is part of the solution for our topic tonight, because we interpret our experience in a way that is not realistic. Right? Why are you so afraid to admit some things that are difficult for you to admit? Because of what you're afraid it means. Even though intellectually you recognize that's not what it means, right? If I say, okay, I'm an addict, fine, I'm an addict. Well, why do we resist that for so long? Because it means I'm a loser. Even though intellectually I know that's not true. See, we're talking about years and years and years of built up emotional baggage that has to be resolved. The good news is we don't have to uncover every little rock to heal, but we do need to understand some basics, and that's what I'm trying to impart to you tonight. Let's get to this next slide. It all starts with our basic needs in childhood. Okay, so I'm going to speed it up because I'd kind of promised you guys that I would keep it short. But this is going to, I hope it's going to blow you away, and it's really going to bring some things into your focus. Okay, so let's start with basic needs. Everybody has them. They're basic human needs. I'm not really talking about the practical external needs. I'm talking about the emotional needs as a child. And even though your family may have fulfilled every one of these needs in an unbelievably healthy way, that still doesn't protect us from trauma, because trauma impacts have to do with our perspective, not other people's behavior. And when you understand trauma in that light, a whole lot of doors are going to open up for you. Now, because trauma is one of those things that we deny. We go, no, I had a perfect childhood, perfect this, perfect that, great friends, got everything I ever wanted, which you might want to look at too. That's not necessarily healthy. Got to play sports, played this, got my, car, da-da-da. I had a wonderful childhood. That's awesome. Heck, I think I did too. And, see, we want to put it in the either-or category. It's not in the either-or category. It's an and. And I've had a lot of experiences that I perceived that I was less than. You grow up with two brothers and with a single mom, and she's working all the time, and she's doing this stuff, and she's trying to perceive things because mom's in a because and mom's busy on the phone. Interpret that experience. She doesn't have time for me. I'm not. You see how easy it is to start developing these trauma impacts that we don't know what to do with. We don't know how to express it. We definitely don't know how to process it. And so here we are, and it builds and builds and builds. So if I feel less than, how do you think I'm going to behave? I'm going to behave in a manner to prove to the world I'm better than. And that's a whole other, I'm kind of leading into a whole other topic, and you got to just kind of wait for that video, but it's a lecture we do all the time called Shameful Shameless. So, but it's at the core of changing our thinking. So that's why I'm kind of touching on it, to really give you an overview on what we're really talking about when we're talking about trauma. Okay, so now, based on what I just said, let's look at some of these bullet points. What are our basic human needs? And think of it from your child perspective. When you're 6, what's a child need? Unconditional love. I don't mean love, I mean unconditional love. Belonging, you need to feel like you belong. We need to feel safe and secure and encouraged, and we need compassion. We need room to fail. We need space to explore ourselves, to explore the world, make a mistake here and there so we can learn how to respond to that mistake. We need freedom to express ourselves, even though other people might not like it, even though we're still learning how to express ourselves in healthy ways. Secure attachments, realistic limits. You know, God, how many times when you were a kid did you put yourself in a position that you realized later, man, that could have killed me, right? Daring your friends to jump off a one-story building seems really fun at the time, but then one of them does it and he breaks his leg and you just thank God it's not you. We need identity is a huge one. That's the next one. What is that? We don't know who we are. We don't know who we are apart from external things. It's really interesting because if you've been around recovery a while, and maybe you've had some rehab stints, and you've been to those 12-step meetings, and you're reading those books, and you know, it all fits, man. It all is going to come together, and I hope this is really bringing some things together for you. We need validation and we need approval. Okay, you may look at that and you go, oh yeah, my family, they gave all that. Awesome, wonderful. Not realistic that everybody does it, but it doesn't matter because that's not the problem. The problem is how we perceive our any given experience. Okay, so it doesn't matter what's true. It doesn't, when it comes to trauma impact, it doesn't matter what's true. Remember, the really hard true things, we tend to be able to make sense of them. I understand that I got fired because I stopped showing up for work. I get that. I would have fired me. You know, things like that. We understand that, even though now it's going to be 6 months before I'm working again. I'm going to have to sell my car. I'm going to have to, none of that matters. It's not, doesn't really mean that we have a trauma impact. But when you're a kid and you perceive an experience that your brain is telling you, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not being encouraged, I don't feel safe, I don't feel secure, people don't love me unconditionally. Bring home a bad grade in 4th grade and get disciplined or whatever, punished or grounded, which was a perfectly normal family response. But does a 4th grader see it that way? No, a 4th grader doesn't know how to process that. So what does a 4th grader think? And a 4th grader is thinking, you know, our brain is searching to make sense of our experience, of all of our experiences, even to today. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble, because what's happened and unresolved from our past now overlaps our perspective of the day. And we've been operating in that since then until change occurs. And so thank God for the recovery process. Thank God that you're willing to educate yourself and keep learning more about yourself so that you can keep growing yourself. Wow, that's powerful. Welcome to recovery. Okay, so I pretty much covered everything. You know, feel free to go back. In fact, if you want to send me an email, I'll shoot you this slideshow if you guys want to read it later. It's good to have. It's good to share. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, we're getting into the really good part. Keys to changing your thinking, identifying your needs. Okay, so remember all those things on that list right there. What you want to do as a person who's looking to grow is pick out 1 or 2 of those that you recognize are really important to you today. Do you have a history of feeling unsafe, even though you are safe, even though intellectually you recognize, no, I'm safe. No, I'm surrounded by good people. They love me. I know they love me. But you still have this deep internal anxiety or restlessness. That's a trauma impact. That is technically PTSD. That is what PTSD looks like later on. Right? You're just re-experiencing old pain, old perspectives, and you don't know what to do with it. But it can have the same impact on you today as it did 20 years ago. That's why we've got to resolve these issues Man, we can't keep denying them. We can't keep acting like, oh no, nothing to see here. It was so long ago. I don't even think about that stuff anymore. Yeah, that's not how it works. Your pain, my pain, and how we responded to it, say by the age of 12, is stored in your memory. And I'll give you a great example. This is why now, as an adult, you can have an experience that's neither here nor there. It's not a big deal. Your spouse says, hey, did you get the dishwasher unloaded? And you flip out. Right? Gosh, dang it. I told you I'd unload the dishwasher. I can't believe you're asking me, da-da-da-da-da, when all you had to do was say yes or no. Right? If the answer is no, hey, yeah, but thanks for reminding me. If it's yes, cool for you. But why do we have a tendency to overreact to present day experiences that don't make any sense, right? It's out of proportion. It's not commensurate with what's happening, because it's triggering one of these basic needs or a threat to it, right? Having an experience like that can make you feel unloved. Having an experience like that can make you feel like you're not being respected. You're not being free to explore, to make decisions on your own. It's not a secure attachment, even though you may actually be experiencing all of those things in reality. That little memory bank in your brain isn't catching it. It's reminding you, hey, look, this is one of those experiences where you're supposed to feel threat. And we do. It's automatic. It's total default. And then an hour or two goes by and you come to your senses and you're like, what the heck was I doing? Like, I get upset when people react that way with me. I can't believe I just did that. You see how the shame cycle just continues and continues and continues. That's why it's called a cycle. The addiction cycle, the shame cycle. Okay, here's where we get to the fun stuff. Recognize those needs. Here is the thought process of all human beings. This first slide is the thought process of what I call the addict thought process, but it's also the same thought process that anybody who's driven, they don't realize it, but have a lot of unresolved emotional pain that they've never dealt with or haven't dealt with it thoroughly. And they've developed a manner of living that helps to protect them, survival mode, but it hasn't worked for years. That's why you still experience so much chronic anxiety, restlessness, discontentment, and ultimately, if you've got substance abuse problems, you're always going to default into your substance abuse. Whatever that compulsion is, by the way, it doesn't have to be substances, right? It can be all kinds of compulsions. And don't forget, phone addiction and TikTok scrolling and all of that other stuff. That absolutely can be a result of what I'm about to talk about. Okay, so let's roll through this. I'm sorry that I don't have a pointer. I don't think y'all can see my pointer on my screen, but okay. So we've got it in 5 sections here. This is how every human being experiences their experience. And right now you're having an experience. You're sitting and you're watching this video, I hope, paying attention to it. Okay, that's an experience. It's neither here nor there. You're thinking something about it, and however you're thinking about it, you're also feeling, right? This is the process in which we have a human experience. There's the situation, and then there's our thought about the situation, which leads to how we feel about the situation, which leads us into our next decision. Now here's the kicker, because we come to the table with a shame-based perspective, we have experiences that we're looking, and depending on your level of pain, unresolved pain, you may be very hyper-vigilant. So when you have an experience, we can be on guard. We start the experience on guard. We're looking for things in our environment that could be threatening to us emotionally, even though it probably isn't threatening, right? This is why we've developed such a need for instant gratification. So let's look at a couple of these. Your event or your situation is anything, literally any experience or any situation. And then we might think, hey, I'm not getting something that I want. I feel danger. This isn't fair. I'm offended. I'm not in control. Which could be as simple as, your sibling just got a cool birthday present, right? And then the little kid goes, oh man, I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. I'm not da-da-da-da. Which now leads to the feeling, well, I feel ashamed. I feel like I'm not good enough. My feelings are hurt. I'm angry. And now here's the kicker. What happens next, and of course all this happens so fast. That's why you really want to start isolating your thought, your feeling, and your reaction. Because that reaction is default mode. It's so automatic. It's the, gosh dang it, I told you I was going to unload the dishwasher. Get off my back. It's automatic. And then you go, oh my God, I can't believe I just said it like that. In our dysfunctional addict thought process, what happens next is we react to how we're feeling. We go backwards. So it doesn't matter what you're actually doing. You could be at your work. You could be on a date. You could be doing something very productive. You might be painting the house. You might be working on some creative project. Or maybe you've got plans to go do something that's really important to you. It's a responsibility. You got to go pick your kids up. You got to go to the basketball game. Whatever it is, that's not going to matter in this formula. Those are the things that we put on hold to change our feeling. Right? So in a dysfunctional thought process, we go forward a little bit, and then we try to change our feelings before we can go forward a little bit, and then we got to change our feelings before we can go forward a little bit, and then I got to change my feelings. And so what we're reacting on is to feel better, right? I feel shame. And remember this too. This is important. When you feel shame today, and you really want to start identifying this in yourself, it's just that internal funk that I'm not good enough. And you know that you're probably experiencing that because your next thought is I got to prove my worth. Well, I'll show them. Right? I'm going to teach them. I'm going to show them. Watch this. That's not competitiveness. That's shame-based. And you have to watch our other videos if you want more details on that. But I could spend all day on that. So here's all reactions are based on feelings. I need instant gratification. I must solve my feelings problem now. It's all about reacting to how we're feeling. Because we think that our situation has caused this. And the result of that, always, 100% of the time, this is our self-defeating pattern we've been living in for a very long time. Ultimately, feeling better or just avoiding not feeling bad, that's usually the relapse. By the time we get so deep into it, now you're just drinking and using again. But before you ever start drinking and using again, we're still living in this cycle. Maybe juggling some balls in the air. Maybe you're still keeping a job together. You're barely taking care of this. You're barely taking care of that. And so what's happening is we're compromising all of our values. All those things that you said were really important to you. Your responsibilities, your goals, being consistent with your kids, making your words have meaning, doing the next right thing. None of that matters in this dysfunctional thought process. We are governed by how we feel, and I'm not doing anything else until I can change that feeling. You might have actually made it to your kid's basketball game, but now you're sitting out in the lobby on the phone trying to resolve some problem so you don't have to feel bad, and then you're going to go into the game. I'm just throwing out all these examples because they're realistic. But you got to search your own. That's the thing. Don't take my examples. You got to apply these to your own examples, but you got to look because they're there. So what we get in this this dysfunctional thought process is we may get some instant relief. Right? I'll show them, I got to solve this problem. Why did you say that? Oh, okay. Well, now that you've explained it, now I can feel better. What's happening is we're needing someone else to do something different or something else to happen, and then I'll feel okay. That's our dysfunction. Needing any other person, place, thing, or situation to do anything different so that we can feel okay, you're going to stay stuck. And you might not ever drink or use again, but you're never going to know freedom. You're always going to be stuck in that cycle. Well, the next slide, I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you how to get out of it. But really look at what it gets us. All of our values get compromised. Our goals get put on hold. Even if it's just, well, it only took 10 minutes to resolve this issue. Man, if you're going through your day, stopping and starting, constantly needing to resolve some feelings problem, that's not success. You're still struggling. Now, you may have adapted to that, and you may feel like it's better than where you've been, and that's good if it is. But man, there's a whole new level of life that we can have in recovery if we'll do the work. This is that type of work. It's about self-exploration. It's about deepening your self-awareness. Not the biggest, but one of the big things that I've come across in my years is people don't understand what to look at or what to look for. Right? They want to do it. They want to be, you all ever heard that expression, the journey of self-discovery. That's what recovery is. That's cool too, and it really is that, as cliche-ish as that is. But if you don't have a guide to show you what we're supposed to be looking for, then we're really just left to our own devices. Hey, and I'm not talking about working the steps. Go work the steps. Work the steps. Don't work the steps. If we don't develop a deeper self-awareness, we can't have a complete life. You're going to always be up and down, up and down. Let's get to the good stuff. Here's a healthy thought process. This is what we're shooting for. This is the thought process you need to spend the rest of your life developing. It shouldn't take that long, but you'll always practice it, and you'll always get tripped up. But this is your foundation. This is what you go back to. This is where you regroup. So you'll notice that the first three columns are exactly the same. Same event, same experience, same thinking. I think that I'm not safe. I think I'm being offended. Something's not right here. There's a threat to my basic needs. Someone's being mean. I'm not getting something that I want. Just go down the list. And which makes me feel shameful that I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. My feelings are hurt. I'm angry. All of those things are part of the human experience. Here's the part that changes. What we do next is different. Have the thoughts. Have the feelings. But recognize the decision you make next needs to not be based on changing your feelings. It needs to be based on you following your values, your goals. And that can take some practice. Instead of reacting with, I must feel better, we start practicing responding to, I must do better. All right, boom, there it is. Do the next right thing regardless of how we feel. How many times have you guys heard that saying? I heard it so many times in my first year. It took me a while to really understand the significance of that. We think, do the next right thing. Okay, so I'm honest with myself, and I went to a meeting today, and we kind of focus in on a couple of tangible things. Those won't change you. They help us. But when I'm talking about doing the next right thing, regardless of how you feel, this is where that comes in. But you can't do that if you don't understand what your own values are. We all have them. We all talk about them. We want to think that we follow them. But if you're honest with yourself, you recognize in the previous slide that we keep compromising them. Right? This formula, I'm always compromising my value. Well, you said you were going to come home early and we were going to have dinner. I know, but right? We've always got some rationalization to not follow our values. Well, quit rationalizing. Start following your values. Following responsibilities. What are they? Identify what your values are. And if you struggle with that, well, just hang on, because I'm getting ready to knock out a video on that. These are the things we talk about every day in our residential program. But look at the results. Let's look at the results column. When we start following this healthy thought process, and by the way, this is how normal people think, feel, and respond. And I haven't met any yet, but in the textbooks, this is what they talk about. The results are always 100% of the time productivity, your growth, you're still accomplishing, you're still making your words have meaning, you're still living the dream, you're still taking care of you. Even though you earlier in the day you believed that you were not lovable, you believed that you were less than, you believed that somebody was against you, something wasn't ever going to work out for you, which made you feel all those things. But even though you had those experiences, because you responded to your values and your responsibilities, you got a completely different result. That's powerful. That is powerful. Now, honestly, it takes some time. You got to develop it. You got to be conscientious of it. You got to be deliberate about it. But this is just a normal human thought process. So practice it. Practice it. That's why I say, if you want this slideshow, send us an email or send a comment about the topic. I forget what it's called. Changing your thinking. Yeah. Just put it in the comments, and we'll get in touch with you. In this last slide, or it's not the last one, but here towards the end, I just copied and pasted the basic needs because I wanted you to have them again later in the slideshow. Because everything is this. So how do I learn how to nurture or meet my needs in healthy ways? Well, that's the recovery process. That's what you're learning. It starts with just identifying that these are real. They're needs, they're not wants. We will fulfill them. I'll give you some examples kind of in dysfunctional ways. If one of your primary needs, I mean, we all have the same needs, but they can vary, in degrees. That's why I say now pick out ones that you recognize today are important to you. And I'm willing to bet that if you'll pay attention to it for the next 24 hours, the first time you get upset about something, well, maybe 72 hours. Let's give you some space. Something's going to upset you. Something's going to hurt your feelings. Something's going to miff you. Something's going to cause you anxiety. I'm willing to bet that 100% what's actually happening, if you will explore it, is you're perceiving a threat in that moment to one of your basic needs. You're feeling that you're not being unconditionally loved. You're feeling that there's conditions to someone's love, even though that may or may not be happening. And wow, what does that remind you of? Well, it reminds me of when I was 8 and I brought home that report card and I got my butt chewed out and I felt like my mom wasn't loving me then, even though that's what's called discipline, right? But when you're 8 and you're getting disciplined, we don't know how to process that. We don't know how to interpret what's happening. All we know is our feelings are hurt, and I don't know what to do with it. So it must be that my mom loves my brother more. That's all it takes, guys. And so imagine a childhood filled with kind of distorted interpretations. When you're looking at your pain, don't look at other people's behavior. It's got nothing to do with it. And so that's one of the ways we've kind of denied our own pain. It's like, oh no, my parents, they love me. Oh no, my family, they love me. They do anything for me. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you ready to talk about your pain yet? Oh no. See, one doesn't cancel out the other. They're two separate things. If we really want to heal, don't be that constitutionally incapable of being honest with yourself, guy or gal. Be willing to really heal. Start looking at your pain and stop rationalizing other people's behavior. Oh no, this, that, it's there. So anyway, this slide is really important. Identify what your values are. And I just kind of made a little list of some of them. Well, it's important for me to do the next right thing. Okay, then quit compromising that. It's important for me to take care of myself. Well, define that. What should that look like? Because taking care of myself is not relieving my feelings. In fact, I've spent, however long you've spent in your dysfunction, I've spent the last 20 years taking care of myself by constantly changing my feelings, and all I ended up with was total self-destruction. Right? So this might be a good time to redefine what taking care of myself is supposed to look like. And don't compromise it. I'm not talking about being perfect. You don't have to perform perfectly, but we got to start practicing. And the more you practice, the more sensitive to right things and right decisions you'll become. Which means as your brain tries to default back into old reactionary behavior, you'll be able to catch it. You'll start noticing it. Wait a minute, that's my old thinking. That's my old feeling. I was offended by this. I was offended by that. So I got to be at work in 10 minutes. That's my responsibility. I'll feel this stuff later. I'm not telling you don't feel. I'm telling you feel, but keep moving. Right? Don't stuff your feelings. Feel it. So you're mad. So be mad, but get to work. So you're upset. You're afraid of this or you're afraid of that. Great, but kids get out of school in 10 minutes. Keep doing the next right thing. This time in your life, and this is for you in recovery. And if you're not quite in recovery yet, man, this is a good time to start. But recovery is your time. It's you've heard it called, it's a selfish program. Well, whatever that means. But it is your time. And you don't have to believe it. You just have to keep doing these little bitty next right thing behaviors, and it will start coming to you. Don't ignore your feelings. Start practicing identifying them. And what I mean is because of survival mode and the distorted thinking and these things I've talked about tonight, we addicts, recovering addicts, we tend to have like two levels, right? We're either angry or depressed. We use the word fine a lot. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. What does that even mean? And I don't mean the acronym. Someone's going to put that in the comments. Was it freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and whatever? What it really means is anger is a condition. It's not an emotion. Mad is an emotion. So start thinking of yourself as having 6 primary emotions and start relating everything to those things. And you can have multiple emotions at once. So practice identifying them. Next time you're angry, hit the pause button. Get really good at the pause button. And ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Oh, I'm so pissed off about it. No, keep digging. Because what you'll discover is, my feelings are hurt. Or I was embarrassed, so I felt shame. I felt guilty because I did mess something up. Or I feel sad because I didn't get something didn't go my way, and I worked really hard on that, and it kind of makes me sad. And start allowing yourself to feel your actual emotion. And I know this is really hard for men too, but you got to do it. If you want to grow, you want to be whole, we have to get a handle on our feelings. And I don't mean learning how to stuff them better. That ship has sailed, right? We've spent a lifetime learning how to stuff our feelings, and this is where we ended up. But your decision making and your feelings are two different things. Feel the feelings, keep responding to your values. Identify your feelings, keep responding to your values and your responsibilities. Okay, this is a tip. I forgot I put this in here. This is an awesome trauma tip. Okay, so the next time, let me see how I wrote this. Every time you experience anxiety, frustrations, and hurt feelings, don't react, respond. Okay, well, here's how you want to respond. You're going to hear me talk about the pause button a lot. Hit the pause button, right? Wait, not the stop button. The pause is just a little delay. You got 4 seconds of willpower before your default mode kicks in, so take advantage of it. You got 4 seconds before that default kicks in. Hit the pause button and ask yourself, what do I believe is happening right now? Right, whatever that experience is and how you're interpreting it, what am I interpreting my experience to be right now? What do I think is so threatening to me? And then use that list, print this off and put it in your pocket. Use this list. Well, do I feel like I'm not being loved? Do I feel like I don't belong? Do I feel unsafe? Do I feel like my freedom to express myself is being stifled? Do I feel like I don't know who I am right now, or other people don't know who I am right now? Am I being heard? Am I being disrespected? Just go down your list. And when you answer that, when you arrive at a conclusion, let it be. Because intellectually, it's not true. Well, it could be true. Maybe you are in an experience where people aren't loving you. That's not your problem. Your solution is learning how to love you, love yourself, right? But if I don't know how to do that because we've spent a lifetime in survival mode, and I only love me when you love me, you're going to stay stuck in this cycle. So we've got to learn new ways of satisfying our needs in healthy ways, and it starts with challenging your thinking. So when you have an event or an experience that's starting to miff you up a little bit, you're starting to get worked up, riled up, whatever, fearful, anxious, restless, discontent, get a moment, pull the car off, walk outside, whatever it is, hit that pause button and start asking yourself just a couple of these basic questions. What do I think this situation means? Well, I think it means that I'm not good enough. I think it means that people don't like me. I think it means that people only like me when I'm performing. And now here's the kicker. I think it means that I'm only good enough when I'm performing at a particular level. That's perfectionism. We'll get into that later. And then interject reality. Okay, it doesn't mean it's going to immediately change your feelings. It means, man, I got my plans today. I got goals today. I've got my responsibilities today. So even though I feel what I'm feeling, I know that if I keep moving forward in my values, this will resolve itself. Maybe I do need to later talk to somebody. Maybe I do need to process it. So stay in touch with your go-to people. But right then isn't the time to deal with it. Right then it's the time to just acknowledge what's actually happening. Well, I'm feeling shameful. What does that remind you of? Well, when I was 10 and I was always the last person in line, or I was always the last person to get picked for ball, or I was always the last person, whatever. Now you're really digging deep. If you can start making those associations on a regular basis, you are really doing some deep work. It's hard because we spent a lifetime stuffing it. I don't want to think about that stuff. Remember the good news. You don't have to uncover every rock. You just have to do a couple of these exercises so that you can begin to recognize your own thought patterns, your own basic needs, your own compromising of your own values. I'm going to cut you guys loose. Thanks for watching this video. Share it. This is good stuff. You probably know somebody in your life that could be served by this right now. Subscribe to our channel, and feel free to put in our comments any topics that are related to addiction, behavioral problems, mental illness, recovery. If you want us to cover a particular topic, put it in there, because I will do it. I will. I promise you, we've already got a lecture for it. I will come on here and I will give you your video and I will teach you some stuff. Thanks for watching, man. We appreciate y'all.